Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Streamer News. Nope, just kidding. This is AFK Chat. I also have to fix something in my routing real quick. Long story. There we go. That should be a little bit better for myself. Hello, hello. I believe everything is working properly. No, you cannot spook me out of a stream, you fools. I am unshakable. Alright, so this is AFK Chat. This is my live streaming show. I'm AFK, chatting in AFK Chat. Nice. This is my live show that we do on Tuesdays here, 3 p.m. Eastern on Amazon and YouTube. I just realized I forgot to turn on my kicker light. Give me 1 sec. So today's show is addressing complaints. Well, not complaints, but, you know, addressing some issues that we had with the last show in a couple of different ways. First and foremost, I now have a little chat featuring scene. So for example, someone's asking if we Amazon Fools show on stream and helps if the thing updates. Yes, you do. This is super rudimentary, super basic. It doesn't look great. But this is the easiest way for me to feature individual chat messages at the moment. And of course, the image source takes a second to update and then it doesn't center and whatever. But I have that going. Come back over here. Also, I'm now using a headset for this particular stream. I have had some issues with, of course, the big desktop microphone not picking me up when I move around and things like that. And I wanted to test this out. This is the Sennheiser, and actually I can feature it in the little product carousel here on Amazon. This is the Sennheiser HMD26, which is a very expensive headset, but it is a broadcast, you know, dynamic headset that's used for esports casting and sports events and things like that. And it ends up sounding a little bit better. Someone's saying the chat isn't moving. YouTube chat just kind of does that as a pop-out browser source from time to time. If I switch back over here, yeah, it's not updating at all. No, that's just YouTube chat being dumb. It just decided to stop updating. What if I go in here and refresh the cache? Whee! There we go. Hopefully that helps. If I tell it to not disable itself. Oh, actually, it's not set to refresh browser when scene becomes active, I guess is what we're going to do. That's about as close as I can get. YouTube chat is very difficult to work with, so we're still working out some kinks because not everything is super smooth, but we've got audio situation sorted. This also means I am able to monitor audio levels during the last AFK chat. Some of you were having issues with the audio volume being too loud and things like that, so we are addressing that by me being able to actually monitor and make sure the volumes aren't too loud. So today we are doing something very exciting that could completely break the stream setup, ironically, but we are testing webcams. So I have a stack here of a bunch of different super cheap webcams that are all under $50 or less. Well, under implies or less. But two of these I'm actually not going to use, at least until the end. This one from, actually that one we are using. Crap. We have two. It's the, oh, I know which ones it is. It is the Anchor one, oddly enough, and then the Allegiant ones. Oh, Aki. Okay, so we have Aki and Allegiant. These are two that I picked up like 2 years ago for reviewing and things like that, or got sent, that are no longer listed on Amazon as far as I can tell, which is why I don't often cover a lot of these kind of more generic and knockoff products on YouTube, because by the time I get around to covering them, they don't exist, and it's not worth it on my channel to cover a product that doesn't have any sort of longevity. So we're going to save these for the end just in case we have extra time and need to play around with a couple more, and maybe we can hunt and find them. But we've got one entry from Logitech, which is the C270, but otherwise we have a giant pile of generic knockoff webcams that are under 50 bucks, and we are going to color grade them and generally try to make them look good and try to make them look presentable for a live stream. And so for that, you may notice the scene's a little brighter. I still have my overhead lights on because webcams don't handle the high dynamic range scene I usually do to look pretty nice very well. And so there's that. Also, we have someone in Amazon chat helping inform people. Yes, Amazon is doing now product-focused live streams. This is a sponsored show of sorts that I do co-stream to YouTube and Amazon. And I can feature different products and things like that. And if you purchase the products using the affiliate links in the description, it helps out the show a lot and my channel a lot. Helps, sustain the business and all of that. And plus, these are all super cheap things. So if you need an extra camera angle or something like that for yourself, for example, if you want to do a cool bird's eye shot or a cool blurred out be right back shot or whatever, cheaper webcams are great options for that rather than investing in expensive proper cameras and things like that for every angle. So I mentioned the headset I'm using. I'm also using it specifically with the Go XLR, so the audio processing is done on the fly. And actually, I think I very much like how it sounds. It still has some handling noise, particularly from the cable and the mic bouncing around a little bit. That comes down to kind of technique to really optimize. And it did come with the cable clip to where you could clip it to your shirt so the cable isn't moving quite as much. But the actual quality from this microphone capsule is actually pretty nice. So I am impressed. It did require a little bit of post-processing, but overall it actually sounds pretty decent. So yeah, today's focus is on cheaper webcams. And so I am going to feature them both for obviously the Amazon chat through the product carousel as well as on screen here. So you know which ones I am talking about. They are all linked below. And those of you on Amazon as well, I'll have in the product carousel the music albums of the backing track music that we are using to play in the background of my videos and streams, which are produced by me and royalty free to use on your streams and videos and things like that, which is pretty cool. We'll have an ad spot for that as well. But moving on to our first webcam. This is the Tenvis TW1 or TW888. This is a $30, $40 currently, although you can save an extra $20 with this coupon. So a $20 with the coupon. So make sure you check that box. 1080p webcam it claims 120 degree field of view, and has a full rotation and things like that. So I haven't even opened this one yet because we've got a bunch of these here. So this one you can get for as cheap as $20, which is one of the cheaper ones we can get. Or you can get from the setup that we're running here. So if I pop on over here, that camera turned itself off, of course. One moment. There we go. Hello? Does it just decide it doesn't want to work? Really? It's powered on. OBS update has there we go. OBS updates kind of tweak some of my sources. I have to deactivate and reactivate some of them. So this is from Tenvis, which as far as I can tell, is not a company you should have ever really heard of. It's just a knockoff little Rio looking style. But I will say for the $20 or $40 that you're spending for it, you get actual instructions, which is impressive. There's the rule breaking. Oh, my camera's even flipped around. There's the rule breaking. We are going to try to incentivize reviews with free products, which they are not supposed to do. But it does come with a little tripod. So if you don't have a monitor to clamp it on, because of course it does have a normal monitor clamp, but if you wanted, you can actually screw it on top of this tripod and put it up wherever you like as well, which could be pretty good for a couple different scenarios. So we'll see if this thing actually has anything close to 120 degree field of view. And yeah. By the way, those of you watching on Amazon, this was a concern the last time we did this. I'm putting this on the tripod. I have no idea why. The tripod will be useful for just other things in general. But for those of you who are watching, we had some concerns last time. You can actually change your nickname in the Amazon chat. That way your full name isn't shown if that's a concern for you. A lot of people were kind of freaking out about that last time. You can give yourself a nickname, so I don't have to see your full name. And if I show chat on screen, the world doesn't have to see it and blah, blah, blah. Have you tried those cheap cameras that use interchangeable C-mount lenses? So I have one that I didn't bring in for today because I got it from AliExpress and it's not available on Amazon. But I have one that I plan to mess with. And then I actually did a review over on the YouTube channel about one that was a modified C920 where they took the C920 and the Brio and things like that and added C-mount to it. But honestly, the lenses themselves don't make a big enough difference to the cameras themselves, because the issues with the cameras primarily come down to the dynamic range of the sensor, the tininess of the sensor, and the issues of the drivers and the settings not saving past reboot or anything like that. And so putting a manual focus lens on it that may be a little bit sharper doesn't make a huge difference, IMO. Someone says my mic sounds weird. I don't know what that means. Gotta give me something to work with here. Is the Behringer 302 USB a good, cheap, minimalist beginner mixer and preamp? I took a look at that one a while back. Is this the one I made a video on? We're gonna pull that up real quick. Okay, so I have actually covered this one. In terms of mic preamps, it's not gonna power anything too crazy or too awesome. You're not driving a RE20 or a SM7B or anything like that. I did make a video on this at some point. I would have to look it up to really see what capabilities it actually, or what video it has. I am exhausted. Which video it is, I'd have to dive in a little bit deeper to actually figure out which video had it in there. But it's good if you just need some basic routing. But in terms of mic quality you're going to get from it, it's not going to be anything too amazing. Sounds like you're handling the mic when talking. Yeah, that's what I was describing before. That's just from the bouncing and getting used to this, and maybe if I write the cable behind me or something there. Better than me not being audible from the other one. That mixer's super noisy. There you go. Some feedback from the YouTube chat as well. All right, so we have plugged the Tenvis in. Wow. I didn't even notice that. Hold up. Holy crap. That's amazing. All right, so we're going to go back to the split view here real quick. So this is what the product image from Tenvis on the Amazon website shows, okay? HD 1080p, you got the lens here, Tenvis. Mine is upside down. The front of the housing was put on upside down. I don't know that that's a good sign for for this starting off. All right, so I did not get one of those Windows beeps when I plugged it in. So honestly, I don't know if it's recognized for some reason. Go ahead and add our source here. Hope everybody's having a great start to your week. By the way, if you missed it, we did have 2 extra videos. So we had one video go live yesterday, which was the USB camera. Oh dear. All right, epilepsy warning real quick before I switch to the scene, just to show you what's happening when I first plug this camera in. This would make a really cool effect for like a music video or something, but it's not super watchable long term. Someone's in the Amazon chat, they said you brought the Australian model. So this is a great start so far. I guess I will try to see if I can make it reach without the extender. Well, I have a hub. All right, we're gonna deactivate this and remove it. I have a hub below my desk I'm gonna try real quick here. Anyway, as I was saying, so we had our normal video go live yesterday, and I'm just gonna flip it to the intro while I talk here. Turn off studio mode. We had a video go live yesterday, which was an interview with Mr. Greggles, who is a drum streamer and does some really awesome, like some of the craziest stream setups I have ever seen. And I'm a huge fan, and does some really cool stuff with that. But then we also had, what does this go to? Oh, that's important. What does this go to? That's important. But then we also had 2 videos about the new AMD and NVIDIA press conferences that happened for Computex last night. They happened at like midnight. And so I did a full video on the AMD one because it had some pretty big, important news, in my opinion. NVIDIA's was just kind of, I mean, obviously they had graphics card launches, but I don't know that anyone will be able to buy them. And so I just made a YouTube short for it and confirmed that YouTube shorts can be 1:1 aspect ratio. Free OBS glitch effect. All right, we're back here. Let me try this again. Also, I haven't been recording this whole time, so that stinks, but that's fine. All right, webcam. Add video capture device. Tenvis. select device, USB camera. Hey, it works this time. All right. So in terms of formats, I can do 1920 by 1080 up to 2997 or 30. But if I drop it to 5 FPS, you also get YUI2. So that would be for the picture mode. So we're going to talk about that as soon as I show it here. So I'm going to set it back to MJPEG 2997. We're going to mute it. Whee. All right. So this is what the webcam will look like out of box with a really bright light. I, of course, have to turn down my light. That's what I was talking about with the webcams and their dynamic range support here. If I turn this down, start getting a little bit more light balance on my face. And actually, I can move the webcam a bit here to get it more where my normal camera is. There we go. That's a lot better. All right, so you can see here the proclaimed 120-degree field of view from this Tenvis webcam here. We definitely get the fisheye effect. Everything around me is curved, which might be useful for like a swirly bokeh effect. But webcams do not handle very bright and very dark settings very well, and so they can overexpose or underexpose very quickly. And so actually just by putting my hand up here, the auto exposure has gone back to overexposing it, even though it looked not bad before. So we are going to use a couple tools to color grade this webcam here. And I'm going to try to show it in real time, even though that's going to be a problem. So first and foremost, we want the actual what are called UVC controls, or the generic webcam controls for this particular webcam. So if I add a window capture for these controls, that is not listed in my window captures. Awesome. That's weird. Apparently OBS can't capture itself in terms of that. I swear I've done that before. All right, so we're not going to do it that way. Confirmed. What I will do is just do my usual desktop capture split. Add scene. Desktop nest. Okay, this is an issue I've had with OBS in 2 different occasions now, is desktop captures and game captures only show if I have the properties window open. This is what happens when you're using fresh builds of OBS here. But regardless, I can crop off here the webcam properties so we can adjust exposure, contrast, and all of that. So you can see what we're actually working with here. All right, so by default, this is, well, I can't move that. This is what the webcam settings look like. Pretty much everything is going to be on auto, and we don't want that. We want more control over how the webcam looks. So first and foremost, we are overexposed. So we want to turn off low light compensation because that's going to do some flickering on its own, but then we want to turn off auto exposure. You can see here immediately we get a little bit darker, and we're going to want to tweak it from there. Exposure, the brighter you have to go here, the choppier your frame rate's going to get. As you can see here, we are overexposed, but I'm moving at like 2 FPS. So generally with most webcams, the -6 range is the way to go. And then you use gain down here to actually adjust the gain, the brightness of your image. Brightness is a little bit different than gain. Gain is essentially kind of like with audio levels. Like you have the signal coming in, you apply gain to it, that increases the sensitivity to the signal. That's the same thing applied to the image sensor. Whereas brightness just increases like the overall like brightness level of the image. This is the actual sensitivity to light. So we're at 11-ish for gain, which is going to be, it's going to increase the noise a little bit, the visual noise, the grain, but will get us closer to where we want. Something I am also noticing is that, actually we can turn that down if we turn our light up a little bit. So it's definitely a big balance between turning up your light, turning down the gain. So if we crank the gain all the way down to 0, that will optimize how much grain we get. Okay, so gain's on 0 and light is balanced. I am fairly evenly exposed here. So I'm going to click apply for that and make sure it's on 60 Hertz since that's the lights I have in my background since I am in the US. And then we need to tweak the colors because it's honestly not terrible out of box. This looks better than most Logitech webcams look like out of box in terms of the white balance color of my face. I always run into Logitech webcams making me super pink or super blue. This one is actually, it's not great, and honestly, it's just kind of undersaturated, but it's honestly not terrible looking either. And if we move our window capture here to the other side, we actually have a big O white diffuser here that we can use in the background there, kind of as a white balance point. Now, you can go further than this with using DaVinci Resolve to color grade and then apply a LUT that you bring in instead of using the tools within OBS. But we want to get us as close as possible with these controls before we do post color grading. So I'm going to uncheck auto white balance, which is going to make us very blue. The issue with webcam white balance settings here is you only have one slider. This is just the color temperature slider. It makes your hair look blue. My hair is blue. The thing is, white balance consists of two sliders. You have color temperature, which is a range from yellow to blue, effectively. But then you have tint, which is a range of reddish, pinkish to green. You don't have tint in any webcam white balance settings for some reason. So you kind of have to get it most of the way there, and then we'll do some post color grading to take it the rest of the way home. So that made us pretty blue. We're going to bring it back here to give us some life back in our skin. We are looking at, that's looking fairly good on my monitor. It's actually not bad, honestly. You can see there, though, the white in the background is still a little yellow, so maybe there-ish kind of looks okay for my skin. The white is still not perfect, but I look okay. So that's kind of what you want to prioritize in these situations. And then we can boost contrast a little bit, give us a little bit more punchy look, although that will affect your hot spots, your overexposure there a little bit. So I'm going to turn my light down a tiny bit so it doesn't look like my skin is melting off. That's a fairly even image here. It looks pretty solid, honestly. You can increase the sharpness through this control, but you're also going to increase the jagged edges on the lines as well as the grain that you get. So if I click apply with this much sharpness, like you have some more detail, but you also have a lot of artifacting from it. That's of course max sharpness. We're going to put it on 1 for now. You can of course add sharpness in a filter in OBS as well. And keep in mind, I can't really test this here without breaking everything, but with a lot of these webcams, most of these settings will not persist past rebooting. That is the big problem with webcams right now, and why everyone's looking at cameras that require or that give you additional software to manage your settings a little bit better, is because these settings will not necessarily persist past reboot. So you'll want to take a screenshot of these once you get them where you're at or something like that, because you're going to run into some issues. Now, of course, I'm going to crank up saturation a tiny bit too, which is going to help our skin tones, help the general color of the image. Honestly, I don't know that we need any additional color grading. I was going to break out. Oh, there we go. Oh, you can see the settings changed. Okay. If I pull this back up, we need to figure out what changed. Cool. Once again, I have to pull up the properties for my desktop source for that to work. All right. I'm going to have to report that to the OBS devs because that's driving me bonkers. All right. So what changed when that closed? Oh, it's back. If I click OK. Okay. I think the settings saved this time. Sometimes the settings don't always save when you do this. Oh, yeah. So for what you can get, again, for $20 right now on Amazon with the $20 off coupon, this is a pretty solid result. Now we're getting only 30 FPS. There's obviously not going to be any 60 FPS. And this is MJPEG, which is different. Okay, so I want to break this down just super quick. I have covered this in a bunch of videos more in depth, and I should probably do like a Tech Focus 101 style video for it. But there are different pre-encoding modes for different webcams and video capture devices, like capture cards. MJPEG is the most common one you encounter on webcams because it's the easiest for lightweight webcams to, or lightweight computers to handle from USB capture cards, but it is worse because it is basically pre-compressed with JPEG compression, which is pretty blurry, and it is a little bit laggier and harder to decode, whereas there are other formats such as YUY2, which is basically completely uncompressed to your CPU, provides much better quality. It isn't pre-compressed with JPEG, and it's much lower latency in order to get things going. And so MJPEG isn't ideal, but USB 2.0 webcams will only ever really operate in MJPEG. And this is actually the difference between photos supposedly looking better than the video, because for photos, you can actually use YUI2. I can set it to 5 FPS in YUI2 and get a less noisy and less compressed image, but it's going to be 5 frames per second. So this is the results you get with the $20 Tenvis or $40 to $20 Tenvis webcam. You do still have that crazy stretched field of view effect here from the 120 degrees field of view, but you get a massive field of view. And if that is important to you, then that matters. In terms of focus, I didn't even think about that. It appears this is a fixed focus camera. I'm not seeing any autofocus pulsing. I get right up on it. Yeah. So your fixed focus, I'm not entirely in focus in the first place, so that is worth considering. The fixed focus point is probably like back here, or even just infinity focus, because my background is pretty freaking sharp. But you can come in here in the controls and adjust it. So yeah, there's no auto checkbox for zoom, or actually there isn't a control for focus at all. So you don't even have manual focus controls. It is just fixed focus, which, there we go. Which some cameras like the AverMedia webcams I have reviewed are also fixed focused. So that means you never have to worry about your face getting, blurred out like the Razer Kiyo Pro I reviewed recently. It has terrible autofocus, so you need to set it to manual focus for it to really be usable. But they tried releasing an autofocus update for it and then had to take it back because it was breaking webcams. But you do lose out in that getting close up on it. You're not entirely in focus, whereas your background is and whatever. But honestly, this is looking pretty solid. So I'm actually going to go through, and obviously your lighting and the color of your lighting and everything will differ based on who you are and what you're using. But I'm going to take a screenshot of these settings and I'm going to post them in my Discord at discord.gg/EposVox. And those of you, I'm just going to spin up a new webcam chat. And those of you who are interested in using it can have these settings available. So I'm going to call this Tenvis settings. And obviously the people in my Discord right now who have no clue what we're doing is going to be like, what the hell? Permissions synced. It's not a private channel. There we go. All right. Permissions should be synced. You guys should be able to see everything, I hope. If not, my mods will fix it later. Because, yeah, it's treating it like a private channel. I don't know. All right. Someone's already confirming in Discord. You can see it. So discord.gg/EposVox. I'm just going to post all the settings for these cameras so that you can try to replicate this to some degree. And again, they will probably reset after reboot. By the way, that hitching is not the webcam like freezing up or anything. That is the whenever I close the settings window, it has to reprocess it so it hangs for a second. That's not like an issue with the webcam. Does the old C920 reset the settings as well? Yes, it does. That's actually was one of the main cameras everyone had an issue with that. It didn't back in the Windows 7 days with the old school Logitech webcam software, but it does with the standard controls in OBS and on Windows 10 and things like that. All right, so that is the Tenvis webcam. I do want to show you real quick. If I add a filter in OBS here, I might be able to fix this fisheye effect. I know video editors have lens distortion capabilities. I feel like there was something in OBS for this as well. Scaling aspect ratio, maybe, if I put that in here. Undistort center of image when scaling from ultra-wide. Okay, that didn't do anything. 16:9. No. Okay, I lied. 4:3. Actually, this is really interesting. So I have set it to scale. I'm just gonna like center this real quick. I've set it to scale to 4:3. But because of how drastic that fisheye effect is, obviously my arms look ridiculous on the sides here, and the sides look ridiculous. But because of the fisheye effect, the center of the image is completely untouched. I look pretty much the same as I did in the 16:9 mode, other than my shoulders are starting to look a lot more narrow. But my face itself is still the correct ratio. So that's really interesting. Okay, so it does not look like OBS has a fisheye correction filter. That's fine. There you go. You can stretch it out and do some funky stuff with yourself, and it might be in the Stream Effects plugin somewhere too. But overall, like, this is fine, especially if you're going to crop this in for a gameplay face cam or whatever. You can crop off some of the sides, and frankly, most people watching on stream will not notice. So that was the Tenvis webcam. We're going to switch back to my main cam here. Obviously, the light is quite a bit darker now as I swap our webcams. So this is the fun part of the process that there was no real way for me to do ahead of time. I have in the past done webcam reviews where I just hooked them all up at once to a big... is this the right plug? I don't think it is. Hooked them all up at once to a big USB bus and just did side-by-side comparisons. The issue is that still caused some frame rate hiccups and things like that. And I'm already overusing my main workstation's USB plugs as is, so I can't do that. I'm hoping this extension cable will continue working for me though. So give me just a sec. I'm gonna flip on back over to this. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and run our music ad. I'm gonna get my extension cable sorted and hopefully we'll be able to keep this running a little bit easier here. So give me just a moment. Whee!
Do you need stream-safe music for your streams and videos, but want something a little heavier? My awesome community sought to solve that and made Backing Track. Hard rock and heavy metal music, safe for your content and free to use. No subscriptions. Head over to backingtrack.gg to stream it or join our Discord for free downloads.
Okay, we're back. So the next webcam we're taking a look at, I have marked it here on the Amazon chat. Let me pull up my tab here. This one, supposedly the company name is Paraquat, which is quite the name. Let me crank my light back up here. There we go. So it looks like this one, it's currently available for $40 on Amazon. Not with the $20 coupon that the Tenvis webcam had. So tiny little one looks a little bit nicer. The other one looked like a Brio knockoff. This one looks a little bit more normal. The model, or the mode, it says mode, it's supposed to say model, is B2-1080p. It's USB 2.0 compatible with Windows 10, 8.7, and Mac OS X. Should just work. It says support beauty, which is lovely English, but supposedly it might have a beauty mode enabled on it, which would be quite the thing if so. So I'm going to get this plugged in here. We're playing musical webcams on today's stream. Thank you for joining me, by the way, for the second episode of AFK Chat. Appreciate your all support here. So by the way, this does have a monitor mount. It does have a tripod screw just like the last one, but it does not fit over my monitor. My monitor is super thick because it's a production monitor, and this does not fit over top of it like most webcams do. So it's built for like thinner webcams. So we're gonna awkwardly just kind of set it here and hope it doesn't fall. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube and you're interested, we do have the stream going live on Amazon. Link is in the video description, as that is the main focus. Support beauty, that's what we're all here to do. Yeah. All right, so I have plugged it in. Once again, I did not get a Windows notification, so we're probably going to get a glitch fest like before. I forgot to remove my webcam source last time. That's unfortunate. UVC camera seems to be the device name. Hey, and it's actually working. All right, so once again, this webcam supports 1920 by 1080, 30 FPS, or it supports onboard H.264 encoding. Let me see here. All right, MJPEG is going to be the way to go. Typically, you do not want to use UVC encode or H.264 encoding rather with webcams, because it will be super. It'll just be laggier. It'll use up more of your CPU to actually utilize and things like that. So here we have, this is the Paraquat, ridiculous name, $40 webcam. If I add in here my desktop nest, which again I have to figure out. Oh, it actually worked this time. You don't seem to have access to any of the controls, which is not ideal. Okay, so we do get manual exposure. We apply, turn off auto exposure. None of it seems to be working. Wow. Yeah, none of this is doing anything. Uh-huh. That's a new one. Yep. So I think by support beauty, this one is saying that it just takes all of the controls for you, which is really unfortunate because you need to be able to manually control your camera in order to get good results out of it. And the fact that it doesn't expose any of these, like none of these settings do anything, is rather concerning. Huh. All right, so we're going to try to work with what we got here with the OBS controls, which will mean we can't control auto exposure. Someone's asking if there is an app included. Also, I wanted to mention real quick here. It says webcam with privacy cover. It doesn't show, actually it shows it on the pictures. This is the exact same camera I have. It does not come with privacy cover in the box. So your mileage may vary there. Plug and play. No drivers required. Open the package, take out the webcam, plug the USB interface, and turn on the webcam. No need to install anything. Big yikes from me, dog. All right. So that means we're just going to manage this the old-fashioned way. So switch on over here. That means I'm cranking down my light. There we go. And auto exposure is kicking us right back up into overexposed territory for some reason. All right, that should be fine for, well, no, that's still using a lot of gain. You can see I'm getting a little ghosty. Yeah, auto exposure is just going to ruin this, dude. That's unfortunate. Maybe that's part of the beauty filter. I do feel like there's like a blurry glaze over my face right now. I don't know how to describe it. Like everything feels weird here. So I guess we're gonna use some filters to try to fix this. So I'm gonna duplicate. Nope, that's not gonna work. So I'm gonna add my desktop nest here, and we're gonna have to just crop it better. Bam. We're gonna use the OBS filters instead of the UVC controls. We're gonna scale this down a little bit so you can still sort of see what's going on. All right, so first and foremost, we need the color grading filter, I guess. I believe this is the one that comes with the Stream Effects plugin. So we've got exposure mostly down. Like if you're just video calling, video chatting, or even doing teaching streams, honestly, this is okay. I don't think it has autofocus. It is kind of hard to tell. If I hold up like something with high contrast, yeah, you can still see the background is like way in focus. So it is fixed focus again, mostly set to infinity focus to be designed to be used like back. But we can start tweaking it. So in terms of color, it's hard to tell on my face a little bit because I'm so overexposed over here. But we can tweak this a little bit. We're going to start with adding in the tiniest bit of contrast. We don't want to add too much because if we add a bunch, like, well, the overexposing part becomes too obvious. If we take it down, yeah. I'm going to set that back to default. That actually does nothing. I'm going to add a little bit of contrast so we get a little bit of a punchier image. I'm going to add a little bit of saturation, just the tiniest amount here. So if we turn, this is off, on, it just brings the colors out a little bit. But in terms of brightness and stuff, this is tough. What if we turn down all gain? Yeah, we can control the brightness a little bit there. So in terms of like exposure and presentation, this looks okay. Honestly though, it is way too grainy. You can see there's a certain kind of MJPEG compression it's kind of using here, where you can see the texture in my shirt as I move. It like is shifting a frame behind. And so honestly, I don't know that I would consider this one a recommendation. Again, for someone using it in a home without studio lighting turned on, you know, just a normal default. Actually, if I just turn my light off entirely, obviously you should be facing at least your overhead lights. But like, it's competent, but I wouldn't consider it worth $40, especially compared to the Tenvis we just used, which was $20 on sale, and gave you a lot more control. The lack of manual controls is just a deal breaker here. Then this comes down to the driver. This just comes down to the driver being terrible. And obviously it's a plug and play thing, so it's not something they entirely distribute, but it's the way that the firmware, the onboard processing on the camera itself interacts with the UVC driver in Windows. So honestly, I don't think I recommend this one. Again, fine for some purposes, but there are better options out there for the budget range. So this one's gonna be a no from me, dog. All right, so we are gonna switch back here and get rid of this camera and switch on over to the AUSDOM one, which is the one that we have next. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that from OBS. We can crank my light back up here. So while we are switching webcams here, I did want to address a specific thing. I'm gonna go ahead and remark our Amazon carousel to be the AUSDOM one. In that, a lot of people often recommend, instead of using the a cheap webcam or something as your webcam, to use your phone. And if you have a phone that, like an old phone that you don't care about anymore, that you can hook up and use with one of the plethora of phone camera apps like Epoch Cam, OBS Ninja, NDI, there's a lot of them. If you have an old one you don't care about, that's an okay option, but for your normal phones, you are going to burn out your battery and kind of hurt the lifespan of your phone, like especially having it plugged in, running really hot for hours and hours on end for a stream. That's really going to burn out your phone and the battery in it. And you're not going to be able to have access to it to tweet out your stream, to check social media, make sure everything's okay, to get important calls or texts that may come in while you're streaming, or to potentially use it as touch portal to control your stream instead, which is far more valuable IMO. I pretty much would always recommend using a cheap webcam if you can make it look decent, which we are showing here that we can to some degree, than using your phone for these kinds of things. That's just my personal opinion, but that's what I really feel like is the way to go. So the next camera that we're going to try to look at here, as also someone in the Amazon chat is asking what type of camera I use. I'm going to be obnoxious because I put in the work to make this scene and actually pull up the thing here. But yeah, I generally can't recommend using your phone as that, like your main phone. You can buy a cheap phone. You can buy an adhesive fan heatsink is not a solution for the outside of your phone. That won't affect your like you're still burning. No, like it'll help a little bit, but it's not gonna fix it. And you're still plugging it in forever. It does not solve the battery problem. Someone's asking what kind of camera I'm using right now as my main camera. This is the totally overkill, which is why I'm not talking about it. This is the Sony A7C with the G Master lens mounted in a teleprompter setup. It is a mirrorless camera from Sony, full frame, yada yada. Obviously not what most people should have, and the lighting is all out of whack because I'm optimizing the lighting for the webcams rather than the mirrorless at the moment. So the camera we're going to try to use right now is this one from AUSDOM, which costs $30, so a little bit cheaper than the last one, but still $10 more than the Tenvis. We may have started out with a hidden gem. That Tenvis one might be a hidden gem in terms of just being that great, and we kind of ruined our perspective for the rest, even though it was upside down. So this one has full 360-degree rotation, all of that. It's $30. Supposedly works with Android as well as Mac and Windows, all the way back to XP, which is pretty nice. Full 1080p video, or in Skype, you can have HD 720p supposedly. I'm just looking for important things we should look for. A 5-element glass lens with premium autofocus. So this will be our first one we have looked at today with autofocus, so we'll test that out. Yeah, that's about all it mentions. So I've got that featured in the Amazon And the Amazon product queue, obviously links are in the description. They're a little too long for me to post in YouTube chat. So we are going to switch on over here to webcam. Actually, I have to set it up first. So we're going to switch on over here to webcam, video capture device. Let's see what it shows up as. Of course, none of these show up as their actual names. So the Tenvis showed up as USB camera. The previous one showed up as UVC camera. This one actually shows up as AUSDOM Full HD camera in OBS. So that means it has a proper, like, they've actually spent the 5 seconds to set up the driver for this one. So that is pretty impressive. Again, we're just stuck with 1080p 30, which is fine. All right, so this one has a much tighter field of view. We've looked at 2 cameras that have fairly wide field of views. This one does not. So if we switch over here, you can tell this one already has quite the cropped in field of view compared to the super wide ones we had before, which is fine for a face cam. This angle is more than good enough IMO. I think the obsession with super wide field of view cameras is maybe not beneficial to everyone, but I think this is fine, and especially since you don't get the distortion and things like that. Someone asked me to add the camera I'm using for testing to the description, so I will add it to my carousel and do that here. Yeah, let me add that to our stream description here. I believe it'll let me do it. I did it before. Go back. Hello? There we go. Add. I need to go back and curate I have like product lists of the gear I use in my videos and things like that. I need to go back and actually like update those because I don't have them super updated at the moment, which is my bad. So this is the AUSDOM one. People are saying to wow me, or asking it to wow them, so we shall see. I am updating the description now. Alright, I have added it to the YouTube description. You'll probably have to refresh for it to take place, so you may want to check it after the stream goes offline. Alright, so this is the AUSDOM. Obviously, we are overexposed to start with, but we are going to start to fix that, assuming it wants to cooperate. So we're going to pull up the UVC controls here, and it looks like we are given proper controls. So let's bring back our desktop screen cap. We can actually show the correct thing this time. Alright. So once again, okay, never mind, I lied. Woo! All right, yeah, the Panasonic BGH1, by the way, for people talking in the YouTube chat, is a wonderful looking camera. I am stoked to try it out at some point if I can. All right, so we have no manual exposure or focus or anything controls in this tab, which is concerning of a start since it's autofocus. You want to be able to, like, if you want a camera that has autofocus, you still want the ability to set it to manual focus so it doesn't move out of the way. Now, it looks like it is actually, well, once we get up on it, it's not keeping us in focus. But back here, you can tell with the facial hair is usually the easy test. Like, I look pretty sharp. Now, the background still looks plenty sharp, so who knows? But I am not seeing any evidence that there's even autofocus in this. Oh, there's a, well, eh. Usually the range of autofocus for small sensor cameras like webcams is the minimum focusing distance is right up on the sensor, and then it comes out to about here. So usually you can get like focus on small things, but that's it. But I'm not seeing any focus pulsing or anything. I don't know that this actually has autofocus. I think we may have been bamboozled again, which is unfortunate. We'll come over here to video proc amp. Let's mess with brightness. So brightness is not controlling exposure, it's just controlling brightness. All right, AUSDOM, you have disappointed. We're going to set power line frequency to 60 hertz. Backlight compensation we can tweak, so we can turn that down. Okay, that actually helped our exposure a lot, but you can see here gain is completely locked out and all the exposure controls are completely locked out. This does get us back to our exposure. Now granted, we have our light blasting at 100%. If we turn that down, we can maybe get a little bit. Now it just looked too dark. It almost needs the light to be at 100%. That's interesting. This is the first webcam that I've used that it can actually handle my full. This is a aperture 120D through a big softbox at 100% brightness. Most webcams don't handle that. Only my mirrorless cameras typically do. So far we get no exposure controls and it appears to be fixed focus, even though the product page for it was touting amazing autofocus capabilities. Thank you, cheap Amazon sellers. All right, so that gets exposure down. I look fine. I can tweak it in post in a little bit. We've got sharpness set to 2. I can turn contrast. See, this is why I often rely. Oh, wait. We still have. No, we don't have the filters on. Okay. This is why sometimes I rely on the filters for tweaking contrast and saturation and stuff, because sometimes it just doesn't look right applied through the UVC control here. Something isn't looking right about that. So we're going to leave that alone. Next, we want to tackle, once again, white balance. I'm going to uncheck auto, see what happens. Surprisingly, nothing happened. So we're going to try to get us a little bit more orange here. Hello? There we go. Looking a little bit more lifelike. Not amazing. I kind of look dead in this webcam, but it's something. That looks to be about as far as we can get with the UVC controls, which honestly is presentable. It's decently sharp. You're mostly in focus, even if it's fixed focus. The movement feels fluid, unlike that last webcam review or webcam we looked at. The noise isn't like shifting weirdly on my shirt. Like it's a fairly clean image here. I am actually mostly okay with this, other than the lack of control. But we were able to tame it and get it under control here. And so if I pull up the OBS filters and add some color grading here, color grading, bring that back up, which of course it's going to be set wrong. So if we go down here, we add a little bit of contrast in this mode, just like the tiniest of hair. So it's 100 by default. We're going to add we're going to make it like 102. Okay. Add a little bit of saturation. I think that's contributing to the deadness. There we go. The color isn't fully right in my hair, and my skin is a little pink, so we can kind of fix that. So highlight, red tint, we can turn that down just like the tiniest amount. I think it looks pretty good. I think we look pretty solid. So for $30, this is a completely presentable webcam for video conferencing, for streaming, for teaching. If you're just looking for a basic webcam, I think the AUSDOM one for $30 is probably worth it. I do think the lack of control over some of these settings are a huge limiting factor that shouldn't be the case. Sorry, I closed the settings window. There we go. And I don't think it should be... Oh, I need to edit that message. This is the AUSDOM. I don't think it should lock you out of the controls, and the OBS focus, or the autofocus, is not amazing, since it doesn't exist, despite what they said. But in terms of just image quality, I think this one's pretty solid. All right. We're going to switch on over to another webcam here. We're going to have to move a little bit quicker because we are already at hitting the hour mark, surprisingly. I guess I didn't anticipate how long setting some of this stuff up will work. So that was the AUSDOM one. We got a couple more going in here. I'm actually going to go ahead and bump up to one that I have actually been using myself for a while, and I have been very impressed with. And this is the Victure SC70 or SC35. I'm going to go ahead and feature this in the Amazon chat here, and I will pull up the split view. It's focused on the webcam now. That's hilarious. I'm going to pull it up in the split view here. So this is the Victure SC35. Okay, come on, camera. SC35. Hello? Look at my face, camera. My eyes are up here. There we go. This is the Victure SC35. You can currently get it for $26.40. And this came on the recommendation of a viewer who recommended this specific webcam as being a hidden gem. And typically I just don't believe people when they say that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But I picked it up just because I was curious. And lo and behold, I am actually somewhat impressed. And it is currently plugged in with the USB extender already. Well, we're going to unplug that and plug it into our current USB extender. There we go. So $26.40 it is available for. Obviously, I'm just going to be out of focus here, apparently. Again, plug and play, which every webcam is going to be. That's not a selling point. Works with Windows XP Service Pack 2 and above. All right. It doesn't tout any specific... It's got automatic light correction and vivid colors, but nothing about autofocus necessarily or anything like that, so that is fine. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I think I had plugged my camera into another capture card to test at one point, so I'm thinking maybe it kicked back to the mode that doesn't do eye tracking over HDMI, and I will have to add that back. If so, that is unfortunate, but we can fix that later. So I'm adding the webcam now, shows up as USB camera. So this one, like I said, I picked up on the recommendation of a viewer, and I have actually, this has been my favorite cheap webcam for a long time. So we've got 1920 by 1080, 30 FPS, MJPEG as usual. We're gonna scale it up, move it down, and switch scenes here. Bam, obviously I am completely overexposed. So step one, turn down our light. You can see the auto exposure kicking in, so about 40% for our light seems to be the sweet spot before it's like, yo, hold up. And then we can pull up the UVC controls as usual. I'm gonna skip through some of the stuff that I've already done a bunch of times. We're gonna crop in on our window here. This one clearly has a much wider field of view. It's claiming a, actually, I don't think they specify a field of view. Yeah, I don't, oh, it says 80 degrees wide angle field of view, but this is much wider than most webcams that people say, or that are claiming this kind of field of view. But we do have full, well, mostly full exposure control. So we turn off low light, turn off auto exposure, and bam, -6. We're already looking great. In fact, we can tweak our light a little bit here, and we already ignore the flickering. That is just me trying to run this through a USB hub. You're always going to have issues. So right off the bat, we have gain set to 0. We have exposure set to -6, which is always the sweet spot. Yeah, this is looking pretty solid in terms of exposure already. I could turn up my light a little bit, but if I get close to it, I'm going to get those hot spots. But if you sit back from it a little bit, that brighter probably looks a little bit better. And of course, you can balance it with some, usually I don't recommend brightness because it's just going to wash out your colors, but you could add like a tiny bit. Or you could add gain, but that will add noise. By keeping gain at 0, we are removing as much noise as possible. So again, this is the Victure SC35. It is the Victure one linked in the description. So we will continue tweaking from here. So a big thing that I run into is that the colors are mostly, they're kind of okay, but you can kind of tell in the orange sandbag back here compared to the other webcams, it needs a little bit of sharpness. So we're going to add, or some saturation rather. So we're going to add some saturation and some contrast, which I think makes it look a lot more pleasing. We're actually going to turn down sharpness to 2, just so we're not adding too much here. And we're going to turn backlight compensation down and click apply. Apologies again for the glitching a little bit. Nothing I can do about that other than using an entirely different computer here. So I think that's a good starting point. The issue I have run into, and it's actually less present here than in some of the shots that I have used it before. Oh, we haven't fixed white balance yet. That's why. So by default, I guess I should point out the normal white balance looks okay. But again, when we go into manual, when we want to try to tweak it to get it right, we lose that tint slider. And this camera the whole time has this massive green tint on everything. So I can get the oranges back up to where I want, but it has this huge green tint to everything that you cannot control. Someone's asking in chat what program I'm using to customize this. This is just the OBS controls. So if I flip over here to, hopefully this isn't cropped. I am just going in here to the specific webcam, clicking properties, and then there's a configure video button here, and it brings you to this properties window. This is the UVC controls for every webcam that you plug into your computer, and that is what I am using. So again, this runs into the issue of not having a tint slider for your white balance. So orange to blue looks mostly fine, although you can't really tell right now, but it is very green. And so that is where the color grading filters will come in handy. And this is actually way worse than when I was using it before, probably because I'm sitting at a different angle, but we can fix that. So if I add a color grading plugin and then drag it in here and we have to tweak our scene again, whee! Window capture button, let me add multiple or desktop captures. So we are, all right. So the color grading plugin, again, this comes from the StreamFX plugin for OBS, an amazing plugin. You have lift, gamma, and gain. So lift is your shadows mostly, gamma is your midtones, and gain is going to be your highlights. That's an exaggeration, but overall, then you also have offsets. So you have individual colors you can tweak. So for example, I can come down here to the green offset and just turn that down just a little bit. And we start removing some of that green, but you can see we start getting pretty red. That's better, but it's still a little too green, so I'm actually gonna put it back to 0. We have tint. That is probably what we're looking for. Shadow green tint, mid-tone green tint, highlight green tint. We're gonna start with the shadows. Turn down some of that green. That's actually not helping at all. That's just affecting the brightness, so we're gonna leave that. So you kind of got to play with these, find the right balance. What I had to do before, now granted, oh crap, it wasn't that green before. I had to do before was actually come in here to the lift and the gamma and gain and do it that way. So if I turn on green lift, that pretty much removes most of it. We go down to gain for the highlights, turn down a little bit. Now we are a little pink. We're also darker because we're literally turning down the gain on the specific colors for that brightness level. And so we are losing a little bit of brightness here. I can actually turn up my light and get some of that light back in here. It's a little punchy. We could probably afford to turn down the contrast that we added in the UVC controls. Probably turn it down to there. That's looking a little bit better. We may want to actually add some gain. Everything's a balance here. You don't want to overexpose your face. But removing that green tint is a little bit easier. And honestly, this is another fixed focus camera, so you don't have any sort of autofocus. It just stays fixed focus. But this is one of the cameras that I have found to be the most stable. Obviously, that's ironic, suggesting the flicker, which someone is asking. Yeah, it's just due to the USB hub. But this is the camera that I have found to be the most reliable in terms of just getting a solid image and keeping it there. And so I'm actually going to post a screenshot with the color grade that I did here in our Discord, so you can get those settings if you like. This has been my favorite. I think compared to the Tenvis, I think the Tenvis now beats it out as my favorite. I think the Tenvis does a better job having used it now. I obviously hadn't used it before, but this Victure webcam, I think, is the better option here. Thank you so much for the super chat. Castlemania Games, how's it going? Hey, we're just testing webcams today. Someone's asking, will there be a video on this? This is the video. This is it. You're watching it. All right, so that was the Victure SC35. I don't think we really need to talk more about it. You can tweak and customize the colors to your heart's content. And again, I would say that going the route of just recording a sample video with like a color chart or something and then bringing it into a video editor like DaVinci Resolve and generating a LUT that you then apply in OBS is the better way to go. I'm just trying to show you what the tools immediately available to you freely here. I do have a video on my YouTube channel about generating a LUT for your webcam to tweak this better. And no, I'm not talking about those pre-made LUTs that you would buy from someone else. This is just making a proper color grade that you apply to your camera that's always applied. I have that video on my channel if you're interested in learning that process. So we're gonna switch webcams now. I need to see which webcam is our next one. I believe it's the DEPSTECH one. Yeah, okay. So we're moving on to the DEPSTECH one, which is a weird one. Let me go ahead and remove our webcam here. What tool is being used to adjust properties? Again, that is the UVC controls available in the video capture device properties in OBS. You can rewind a little bit. I actually just literally showed how to access it. All right, so we're unplugging the Victure one. Again, that was my favorite originally going into this video, having not used some of these yet. It's probably my second favorite now. So whatever. The Tenvis is probably my favorite. I'm gonna get a drink here for a sec. So this is the DEPSTECH. Now this is claiming to be a 2K Quad HD, and I just want to clarify here for a second because it's a nitpicky issue that I have. 2K as a resolution is 2048 by 1080. It is not 1440p. Just to clarify, as a format, as a resolution, it is 2048 by 1080, not 1440p. But either way, this webcam claims to be a 2K Quad HD being 1440p, USB webcam. Given that it's still USB 2.0, I'm going to say X doubt to that. But it's available for only $19, which is pretty impressive. It has a 1/2.8 inch CMOS sensor, It says features 2560 by 1440 quad HD resolution. A fluid 25 to 30 frames per second. I hope that means you can choose 25 or 30 frames per second and not it just varies between 25 and 30 frames per second, because that's not fluid. It says fixed focus, so that way we know. Auto light correction and HDR. Plug and play, works with Windows XP again. I love seeing that just because I love Windows XP, but if we switch to the top camera here, you get a couple little paperwork in the box, quality control, whatever, but then you get the webcam yourself. And again, this is one of those Logitech Brio style housings where they're cloning the Logitech Brio design, as a micro USB in the back, so it's not USB 3, so again, 1440p is highly unlikely. And it has a 360-degree swivel pan tilt head with the monitor mount, but it does not have a tripod screw. I think this is the first one we've reviewed that didn't have a tripod screw, which is pretty disappointing because that's fairly necessary. And then it comes with the micro USB cable in the box. So, is there a way to call out the UVC setting in Windows? For you lecturers who can't call it up in Zoom. I thought Zoom gave you access to it. Honestly, I've never found a way to access it outside of video chatting or streaming programs. I'm sure there's some shortcut to the registry settings or something I could show you. I personally don't know of it. And in fact, if anyone finds it out, ping me on Discord when you do, because I would love to feature that, but I have personally never seen it. All right. So we have plugged in our supposed 2K webcam here. Looks pretty solid on here. Of course, the camera's going to focus on it because it's being dumb. Let's get ourselves a webcam scene going. So I'm going to add the video capture device. We're going to call this DEPSTECH, which is, these companies come up with the weirdest names. It shows up in OBS as nothing. I don't have it listed at all. Question mark. This is the first camera we've added that hasn't shown up at all. So that's something. Oh, there we go. I did not want to plug into my hub all the way. All right, let's try that again. Whee! Appreciate the kind words, Valeria, saying they love my channel on YouTube, watching over on Amazon. DEPSTECH. All right, it should show up this time. It shows up to OBS as full hand webcam. Okay. Apparently also called the full hand webcam. Now this is available in 2560 by 1440 at 30 frames per second in MJPEG and H.264. It is not a lie. I am very impressed. If we switch scenes here, if my Stream Deck cooperates, we get a lovely, I'm going to wipe off the lens in case it's dust. It's not. So we get a lovely Cinebloom Pro Mist style like glow to everything. Which I think is caused by the glossy plastic in front of the lens here. So this is a cool dreamy look if that's what you're going for. Hopefully with the right exposure controls we can control it. The saturation looks pretty good. Like this image pops. Like right out of box, this is pretty impressive. And so again, this is claiming to be running at 1440p, 30 frames per second. And it's in MJPEG, H.264 is everything else. Obviously it can't do anything better because it's USB 2. So this is pretty neat. Yeah, I'm actually surprisingly impressed here so far. Like out of box, this looks pretty good. Frame rate is not super, okay. Frame rate does not hold up. It says 30 FPS, but this is, this is like 15, but that could be due to the giant exposure gap. So we're gonna investigate that because obviously the auto exposure is adding a ton of exposure to this. We're going to get our UVC controls up here in OBS. Again, you access that by clicking properties on your video capture device in OBS and then clicking configure video. I'll probably just make a YouTube short showing how to do that at some point just so I can reference that moving forward. So here are the controls we have exposed to us. Again, we do get auto exposure. It is set to -11. That doesn't sound right. All right, there we go. Auto controls. Oh, okay. -6 is already too glowy. It looks like we were set to the equivalent of -6 or -5 already. I don't know what's up. The glow is just ridiculous though. All right, so first we're going to turn down our light because our light is just too much. So we turn that down start to get a better image. If we go to minus, can we make it to -5? Without looking too bad. That's decently exposed. We're gonna start with that. Go over here to video proc amp. Okay, gain is set to 50, so that's part of why it looks so bad. We're gonna crank this all the way down to 0. Oh dear. Power line frequency just wasn't set. That's weird. All right, so with gain set to 0. Interesting. Okay. That was using 50 gain. No wonder it looked so ridiculous. So we're gonna crank up our light again. Again, this is, wow, our colors. Did you see that? Did you see the shift in colors there? All right. So look at the colors now, like in my face and the stuff in the back. And obviously this is the auto white balance kicking in. But once we add just like the whole colors shift. That's fascinating. But again, that's just like auto white balance. All right, so we add some light. All right, I'm blasting myself with 100% of this Aperture 120D, and we are still not bright enough. Fascinating. So this is at -3 at this point. Frame rate is not super smooth. You do have to balance between the exposure and your gain. Guess we can turn up gain. Gain is like super delayed when you apply it, by the way. That's fairly normal. All right, so we're going with -4 exposure and 7 gain, but it is pretty blotchy. So this has the same compression issues that the knockoff, the Paraquat webcam we reviewed did, where everything's really blotchy and kind of moves in spades. I honestly, I wish I had an explanation for what that was. I've never been able to like get an answer as to what that effect really is. But the compression is not handling, you know, certain finer details very well, and it makes it very blotchy, and it makes it move in like blotches. It's really strange. So honestly, I'm not happy with this overall, like the exposure levels. What if we drop it to 1080p though? If we drop it to 1080p, it might look better, because a lot of these webcams do some weird interpolation to get up to higher res. Okay, we set it to 1080p and it didn't even change modes. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. So, you're watching with me. So typically, when you change modes in a webcam, say resolution or frame rate, it has to like freeze for a sec as it switches to that new mode, because it's literally accessing a different video feed from that camera. We are at 1080p. We set it to 1920 by 14 or 2560 by 1440. Nothing changes. Whereas if we drop it to 720, oh, nothing changes either. Question mark? Deactivate. Oh, it's because we have the properties open. Never mind. I thought I had exposed the fake. Whee! There we go. All right, so now we dropped to 1080p. I thought we had exposed something cool. All right, so this might look better at 1080p. It doesn't. Still blotchy as can be. All right, we're going back to 1440p. All right. Transform, fit to screen, properties. Yeah, if you leave that UVC control window up, you can't like update the status of your webcam. I forgot I had it up. All right, so we're gonna set this back. So this is what we're looking at so far in terms of exposure. Honestly, it's fine. Like, I think 7 was the way to go here. You still have a little bit of glow. Like, we still have a little bit of, the effect is called halation. It's where highlights and things like that kind of bloom and glow a little bit more than they're supposed to. Honestly, it's a pleasing look. I use Pro Mist filters on all of my lenses to get, it provides more diffusion for your skin and things like that. But it may not be preferred to everyone. So you can see my lips look super peach almost. It looks like I'm wearing peach lipstick. We're gonna uncheck white balance auto. See if we can tweak it a little bit. Do-do. I don't like how that looks at all. Bring it back to here. Again, it's got a lot of focus on the pinks. Sharpness is at a scale of 128 instead of like 1 to 10 for some reason. If I turn it all the way down, that is sharpness all the way down. The blotchiness is not fixed, but I can tell there's some edge like sharpness that was lost from that. If we turn it all the way up, doesn't make a huge difference. Like you can see in the background, the jaggies get worse and stuff. So I'm gonna leave it close to middle. Maybe we'll increase it a tiny bit from the default. That's basically the same. Now we can turn up contrast just a tad here. I like that. And then we play with saturation. These scales are broken. This is not how the scales for these are supposed to work, by the way. Ooh, actually, that's looking a little bit better. Like typically I've been going for the oversaturated look with these, but this helps my lips look a little bit more natural. Granted, they are like pink to some degree, but my skin looks a little bit better. So honestly, I don't know that I would mess with the color grading plugin for this, if nothing else, because the blotchiness is going to be hard to compensate for. I'm going to post this one screenshot in our Discord. This is the DEPSTECH. But yeah, the blotchiness is still a deal breaker for me. I think compared to the Tenvis one, the Tenvis one is the way to go, guys. Is the blotchy effect a quantized artifact of some sort? Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's probably it with the onboard MJPEG encoder. We can take a look at the H.264 mode real quick and see if it's any better, since it's encoding it differently. Oh, we gotta close our UVC controls for that to happen. Whee! All right, we are on H.264. Now we are completely out of sync, and the blotchiness is not any better. So that's the issue with the H.264 encoder, is it comes in significantly more delayed than MJPEG. Blotchiness not any better, so there we go. The onboard encoder for this is just garbage. So I would say some people should be able to, like this looks fine presentability wise. Like you could use it for 30 bucks. It's not bad, but I'm going to have to go back here and say again to purchase the $20 Tenvis one for $1 more than this one with the coupon. I hate just recommending the first camera we started with. That was not at all intentional. I hadn't even opened it yet, but I think that's what we're going to have to do. All right. So we have, I think, just one more webcam to test today. I do realize we're going over. I apologize. That's just the nature of this. The show is not guaranteed to only be an hour here. But we are going to swap to the final camera, which is the one from a brand you may have actually heard of, Logitech. This is the Logitech C270. And so something that I actually wanted to highlight here about the different webcam brands and things like that is that the advantage of going with a company, and I hate to say this because I criticize them all the time, deservingly so, but the advantage of going with a company like Logitech, despite the fact that they haven't directly fixed issues like settings not saving past reboot, and they had a lot of issues with the C920s, H.264 versus MJPEG whenever Windows 10 launched. Like, they've had a lot of issues with their webcams, and I really felt like they got complacent and didn't really innovate very much. And I still think the Logitech StreamCam was honestly an embarrassment to have released, especially compared to the Brio, which was already out there. When you work with a company like Logitech in terms of buying their cameras, you get support that lasts a long time. You may not get all the features that you want, you may not get the best quality that you want, but you get a camera that's going to last for a long time. And I think this particular camera actually stands the test of time for that. All right, this is another one. The C270 does not have a tripod screw. This was before that was normalized. But I want to show, actually, I probably can't pull it up. This webcam right here, granted, it didn't say Logi, it said Logitech because this was 10 years ago. This was the first webcam I ever bought back in like 2009 or 2010 that I started my YouTube channel on. You can still buy this webcam today. You can still purchase this webcam and get updated drivers and support for it. Meanwhile, two of the webcams I had planned on covering for this video aren't even on Amazon anymore by the time I get around to covering them. So that is some of the advantage you get of using a established, actual, like, well-known company for a product, is you get the support and the reliability knowing that the company won't pretend this product exists in 6 months or 6 years even. And the same thing with the C920. That was my second webcam I ever purchased for my YouTube channel. And that was back in like 2012. And it's still one of the most sold webcams today. So that's certainly worth noting, even if you're not getting the same results. And to some degree that matters. Now, when you're getting, when you're getting it for 20 bucks or 10 bucks, you may want something that works now and you don't care about it in a couple years, you're going to upgrade anyway. But for some people, they want to buy something that they know is going to last them a long time and be really, a worthwhile purchase and not just up and vanish in a couple years. And that's the issue with a lot of these third-party sellers. Now, not only does this not have a tripod mount, it doesn't have any swivel controls. All of them had 360-degree swivels pretty much up to this camera. This one doesn't. So the angle is going to get a little awkward. We've got Rusty Breaks in the chat while you're live. I just wanted to say thank you for everything you've taught me. Well, you are welcome. Thank you for tuning into the chat. And that was supposed to switch scenes, but of course, I had studio mode up, so now everything's going to act dumb. All right, so let's get our webcam scene set up for this final webcam we are testing today. And again, I have that featured in the Amazon carousel as well. Product links are in the description. If you use those, helps the channel a lot. C270. And I will make sure I try to fix the autofocus issue before my next stream. All right, this one isn't being detected at all either. That's a concern. Yeah, oh, USB video device. Don't tell me it's showing up as a USB video device. That's unexpected. Maybe it's because of the way I have it plugged in. All right, so this is a 720p 30 FPS webcam, keep in mind. And again, this is a webcam that came out in like 2009. So 720p was considered a big deal for it. The field of view is not wide at all because people didn't want that. People wanted at the time webcams that were just your face for like classic video chatting. And frankly, for a stream, this is probably fine, especially since realistically, if I'm playing games or whatever, I'm gonna be sitting back here a little bit. I believe it's fixed focus. They don't honestly release a whole lot of details about it at this point. 3 megapixel photos. Yeah, it doesn't say. So yeah, I think this is before they started really doing the autofocus. Yeah. So it's a fixed focus one again. It has a, I believe, 60-degree field of view, which is the tightest field of view we have reviewed so far. But out of box, we get a very smooth frame rate compared to the other webcams. Very smooth frame rate here. All right, so obviously we have to start tweaking exposure. First and foremost, I'm going to start with my light until it starts kicking in the auto exposure. Actually, it's not overexposing me with the auto exposure, so that looks pretty good. Now, we have the typical Logitech white balance, which makes me completely blue and just doesn't look right, but we can start tweaking that. So I'm going to pull up the UVC controls through OBS here. Get ourselves lined up, because window capture did not want to work. So come in here, obviously turn off low light compensation. We're going to resize this since the field of view is so tight. We're going to turn off auto exposure. And we're going to crank it down to -6. Yeah, we're going to start losing a lot of look at that point. So we're going to leave it at -5, turn on our light a little bit more. That probably looks good. All right. Come over here to this one. Okay, gain is set really high. Put the gain at 68. That looks about where we had it. But I'm thinking, do we still keep frame rate at this exposure? Because then we could turn down gain even more. All right, that probably doesn't look too bad. So we're actually at -4 exposure. Frame rate suffered. You can see the ghosting, the stuttering as I swing. All right, so -5 looks to be the compromise for frame rate. Yep, we are way smoother here. And this is an issue with webcams in that they tie exposure to the shutter speed, whereas typically with a formal camera that you mount and set up, you leave your shutter speed the same. You do not, you leave it at 1/60 for 30 FPS or 1/120 for 60 FPS typically. And you don't really mess with it too much. Whereas webcams actually alternate or, modify the shutter speed to tweak this. So that looks good in terms of frame rate. We are as decently exposed as we're probably going to get here. Then we start tweaking the white balance because again, now, yeah, so this is the typical dynamic, and I don't know why this affects all Logitech webcams, but typically with Logitech webcams, you go back and forth between either being too blue or too pink, and it's a pain in the ass to try to work with. So we're gonna push this into orange territory a little bit here. I'm honestly not happy with it, but we'll make it work. We're gonna turn down the sharpness. It gets real blurry. Turn up the sharpness. It gets real noisy. About there is probably good. Actually gonna leave the contrast about there, and then saturation. I'm doing this by eye. That's probably fine. We are still a little pink. We can tweak white balance from there. Honestly, that's not terrible. Again, this is the C270, by the way, the Logitech C270. It's the last one in our list that we were testing today. So this is again, for talking head, for cropping in for a face cam on a stream, you don't have to crop in and lose any extra resolution because you're just chopping off the sides or something. Looks fine. Sharpness is okay for, again, it's a 720p camera. I'm upscaling it to 4K for the YouTube copy of this stream. Frame rate is holding up pretty well at this point. If you get too close to certain lights, you're going to overexpose as always with a webcam. But for a webcam from 2009 that you can get for $27 right now, I'd say if you want the tighter field of view, this is the way to go. Yeah, so I'm going to post these settings in our Discord server here in the webcam chat as the last one. If you have any questions about today's video, you can ask them in that chat in our Discord server. That's discord.gg/EposVox. I'm fairly happy with this, honestly. Like, it's not great, and it's 720p. There we go. And everything, but it looks fine. So I will say, I think to crown a winner or whatever from today's stream, I think the best webcam is the Tenvis TW88. That was, or 888. That was the one we started with. I think that had the best results overall. Out of everything that we tested, I think this was by far the best one. The second favorite of mine is the Victure. I didn't quite get the image to where I'd like to have it with that particular webcam in today's stream, but it was still good. And then honestly, the C270 comes in third for me here because the other ones we looked at were just not great. And this doesn't even have the blotchiness. This is a camera from like 2008, 2009, and it doesn't have, obviously I have to reach my shirt up here to actually see it, but it doesn't have the blotchiness of the encoders for some of those other webcams you start out. So I'm going to say, if you're buying a webcam and you're, if you're looking to, you got 20 bucks to spend, 30 bucks to spend on a webcam, the Tenvis TV888, the Victure SC35, or the Logitech C270 are all great options to start with and will be much better than burning out your phone's battery over an extended stream. Cujo keeps saying, should have tested the mics. Webcam mics are never worth using and they don't show up properly in OBS, and that would just cause way too many problems. That's not going to happen. I'm just not going to bother. That would cause so many issues. But yeah, so I'm going to have time codes updated in the video description after the stream goes down. If you want to refer back to it to check the specific webcams, or you tuned in late and you wanted to see the specific, looks for them. All right, someone else is echoing the interest in the mic reviews. The issue is no, I can't do it without fully setting everything up. So maybe at some point I can do a dedicated video that's just a dedicated webcam mic shootout, but juggling that with your existing audio and OBS and stuff does not work out well at all. But yeah. These are the cameras I'd recommend. So Blazing Blackbeard is saying, or just use a spare phone, you don't care about the battery. So two things with that. One, yes. However, if you don't have a spare phone laying around, which not everyone does, especially one that has a modern enough iOS or Android version to use most of the phone apps with, then buying one typically, again, that would be worth using, would cost more than the webcams themselves. And you're still dealing with a fair bit of variable latency with those streaming apps. It's still an option, and it's a great option if it's what you have, but the wireless streaming, and even the USB ones, which are a lot of funkiness to work around with, the latency of the video matching your audio stream over those kinds of services are variable and really all over the place, and you're not going to be synced up. And frankly, you're going to have better results even having a webcam that looks like this, but your audio is mostly in sync, than a webcam that keeps drifting in and out of sync. And frankly, most of those webcam phone apps, they don't give you controls over the phone. So you can have a freaking iPhone 11 here that has a good camera, but I don't get the same manual controls over it that I do. So for a point of comparison, I will boot it up here just to show you, because I do think for a lot of people that this is the way to go. I don't even know if I still have it installed, actually. Epoch Cam Pro. Epoch Cam Pro beta hasn't expired. So no, never mind. I will be doing a shootout video about the different phone streaming options in the future. But I just... you can't adjust latency in OBS for variable latency. Inherently, you'd be adjusting it on the fly because it's variable. So I don't really... I think it's a great option if you just use it every once in a while, or again, you already have a phone, or you're using it for a second angle that you don't want to sync up audio to all that much anyway. but I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense for most people. For some people, it makes all the sense, but for most people, I don't think it makes a ton of sense as a dedicated webcam. But yeah, that's going to wrap up today's stream, ladies and gentlemen. Get my light turned back up here. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you for tuning in. This did go a little bit longer, but we covered quite a few webcams here. And I got to say, I am actually impressed with some of these that you can get for $20 or $30. And the Tenvis being only $20 right now with that coupon is fairly impressive. Again, just to run through for those of you who are tuning in late, the audio today has been routed through the Sennheiser HMD26 headset, which is a professional broadcast headset. It's super expensive, and I had to solder my own ends on it for XLR and 1/4 inch. But the audio you get out of it for a headset mic, especially for the esports and casting kind of roles it's used for, is actually pretty phenomenal. And I have it routed into the Go XLR for on-the-fly processing, so I can hear all my levels and balance it and things like that. Thank you so much for tuning in to AFK Chat. We'll be back next week, Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Amazon and YouTube. As always, hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more tech reviews and more budget stuff, and I may do that budget webcam microphone shootout since I have all these webcams anyway. And I'll see you in the next one. By the way, if you missed it, go check out the videos from this past week, because we already had 3 videos in one day, which was absolutely insane. Of course, we had the lovely, hello Stream Deck, the lovely tour of Mr. Gregel's stream setup, which was incredible. That video is an hour long. It was almost 2 hours long on the Nebula extended cut, because we just talked about so many streaming topics and so many fine details of his setup. We also had AMD and NVIDIA Computex videos from their streams from last night, as well as, of course, this stream that you're watching now. Like I said, hit the like button, subscribe, join us on Discord, discord.gg/EposVox, and go check out Backing Track for music for your stream. I will see you in the next one.
Do you need stream-safe music for your streams and videos, but want something a little heavier? My awesome community sought to solve that and made Backing Track. Hard rock and heavy metal music, safe for your content and free to use. No subscriptions. Head over to backingtrack.gg to stream it or join our Discord for free downloads.
Swoop.